Esports Connected. I'm Megan Van Patten, your host for today's show. Hello, Chris. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
We are so excited. So for those of you that don't know, Chris founded the Garden State Esports, a not-for-profit for educate. Oh, actually, it was all educators that founded it. For Scholastic Esports in New Jersey, and their mission is to create a high-quality, student-centered experience through Scholastic Esports, so all students can use esports as a platform to grow socially, emotionally, and academically. How's it going for you, Chris?
It's going really well. Garden State Esports continues to grow. We continue to add more schools to the league. We just held our fall finals a couple weeks ago at Rider University. We had 1,000 people come out. We crowned 5 state champions in high school and middle school. We played some Smash, we played some League of Legends, we played some Rocket League. And yeah, excited to be talking to you today.
Oh my gosh, we're so glad to have you. So yeah, should we start from the beginning? We have so much to cover and you do so much, my goodness. Why don't we start with your background and what happened during the pandemic to lead you to get all the educators together that you did.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been a public school teacher here in New Jersey for 14 years. Currently teach high school English at Keyport High School. And you know, I guess it kind of starts way back when StarCraft came out in '99. I really got into that with my friends, and we used to go to you know, Radio Shack. I don't know if you've ever heard of Radio Shack. So it used to be, but so back when Radio Shacks used to have these different tournaments and stuff like that, my friends and I, we would go and we would play, and that was kind of my introduction to esports. Fast forward, you know, I've played and coached football, wrestling, track, and even did some rugby in college and stuff like that at St. Joe's. Started teaching in 2006. And very quickly, I noticed that a lot of my relationships with my students was based on video games. You know, I was only 22 when I started teaching, and I had, you know, high school juniors and seniors. So they're 17, 18. So we weren't that far apart. And, you know, we built a lot of our conversations and relationships about who's playing what games are they playing and stuff like that. And I always knew kind of like esports was a thing because I would follow StarCraft and StarCraft 2. And I always wanted to bring it to that school because having been a coach and an athlete, I know that you can learn as much about life, you know, on a wrestling mat or a football field as you can, you know, in a classroom. But if you've never taught, right, there is you know, a pretty good sized portion of the population who either can't play sports, doesn't want to play sports, but they still want to be involved. And so it took, man, 8 years, I think. I actually wound up changing schools. I started to teach middle school science. And at that school, they finally let me start an esports team after, you know, basically asking and begging and finally getting permission and having to overcome obstacles of like the technology and how are we going to do it. But I started the first middle school esports team in the country, you know, back in 2017, 2018. And then, you know, we had a good year just kind of playing, and COVID hit. And, you know, where we had all been playing, you know, kind of kids against kids in the school, I reached out to some other educators, you know, who I knew had video game clubs. And I said, look, you know, my kids are all home. Do you want to play us in some Rocket League? And, you know, Steve Isaacs, you know, kind of a big name out there. He works for Epic Games now. But he, you know, was a teacher just like me down the road. And so he and I started to just have matches, and we would, you know, tweet it and stuff like that. People thought it was really neat. And then you saw all these people, well, can we play, or can my students play? And it was cool because everybody was home. So the kids had their Xboxes, they had their computers, they had all the technology they needed at home. And the league just started to grow. And so by the time the pandemic started to wind down, we had something like 60 schools who were all just kind of playing. Like we would just put out our own little schedules and stuff like that. And I'm a big data nerd, so I'm always doing surveys and stuff like that, and surveying my own kids and kids who are in the league, and hey, what do you want to do for next year? I asked them a question. I said, what is being part of this esports league meant to you? Megan, if I could tell you the responses that came from these kids, it was unbelievable. From something as simple as like they felt seen and they felt like they mattered, right? Something that they loved was, brought into school. To I had kids who had contemplated suicide, but being part of the league was what they looked forward to the most. And so it was just wild to me. So, I shared some of the responses with the other educators and I said, look, I think we could do something here. When we get back to school, I don't want this to stop. So we spun up a nonprofit and we founded Garden State Esports, and kind of we've been going from there. And so as we go into year 4, I have almost 60% of the schools in New Jersey playing for me. I have 231 as of this morning. And so, yeah, we have about 5,000 kids, 230 something schools. And, even the data, because I continue to survey the kids, is still so amazing. Um, Almost a third of the kids, this is the only thing they do at their school. They don't do theater, they don't play sports, they don't do clubs, you know, they just want to play games. And I think that's part of what gets lost a lot of times and why this stuff is so valuable is, I can even tell you probably when it happened. If you remember when Ninja and Juju Smith Schuster and Drake all played Fortnite together. I remember coming into school that next day and every kid was talking about it, whether it was the athletes, whether it was the kids, who were into the music, who were into games, right? Because everybody was part of that party, right? You had Ninja, the gamer, you had Drake, the rapper, you had Schuster, the football player, and now all of a sudden, everybody was just talking about how much they loved playing games and Fortnite and all this. It was really kind of neat to see almost like this new identity because the unfortunate way that we view gaming, they're alone in the basement and they're antisocial and stuff like that. But what a lot of people don't realize is more and more kids, this is becoming part of their personality and who they are. So just like you know the football players wearing their varsity jackets on game day, or the student body president, everybody's proud of those things. But so often teachers and parents, oh, gaming's a waste, gaming is not important. You're dismissing an entire kid's like personality, part of who they are. And obviously I don't have to tell you just how big the video game industry is and just how many jobs there are there. And so it's been really cool as we continue to grow. This is the biggest message that I'm getting from parents and kids is that they feel seen, they feel like they're part of something. Because the other thing that we do, and I think part of what makes us unique, um, you know, when I'm counseling these schools, not just how to play, but some other stuff, having matches on the morning announcements along with the other sports, having esports athletes as athletes of the week along with the other sports, walking in the pep rallies, getting varsity jackets, giving varsity letters, having jerseys. It all just helps with that sense of belonging. And so, that really is the mission of Garden State Esports. Everybody on my team is an educator. So we're kids first. Our bottom line is to kids, not to shareholders. And we want to make sure that every kid can grow socially, emotionally, and academically through esports, because the academic piece is really easy too. A kid who has something to look forward to after school is going to show up more. He's going to behave better and he's going to do better in school because a lot of these programs tie grades to their ability to participate. So it's a win across the board. And I wish I could tell you schools were joining because they love, competitive gaming. Most of them have zero idea what it even is. But what they love about it is, in the education world, what we call SEL, social emotional learning piece, right? The ability to help kids grow socially and emotionally. And they love the careers piece, right? Because we can tie a lot of this stuff to jobs in and around the esports industry. And so, you can't be serious about STEM without being serious about esports. And so when we talk about career and we talk about helping kids grow socially and emotionally, esports is this really fast up and coming and growing thing. And I'm just proud of the work that my team is doing here in New Jersey. And I'm proud to have more than half the state making us the largest scholastic esports league in the country.
Well, yeah. So thank you for sharing, your journey as to how it began. One of the reasons that, and for those of you that might not know, we named Chris the Game Changer of the Year at the Esports Trade Association and conference Esports Next, due to his vision to ensure that all students possess the knowledge and skills needed in society's game changers, through education and through social impact and emotional health. It's so important. And we only choose one person a year. And we're so excited for you and everything you're doing. And one of the things about why I love trade associations is it's old school and it's bringing like the oldest thing, like the fact we even call it a trade.
Mhm.
When I first started having conversations about the Esports Trade Association and why we're here and why it's important, how many times I've had to tell people what a trade association is. At first I was like, this is frustrating. And then I pivoted and I was like, this is an opportunity to bring back like the oldest way of doing business. The medical associations do it well with their students. The dental, the law, the bar, they get their students involved with mentorship, in these strong structures with successful adults. The guardrails a student needs to get experience, direction, and to keep an industry growing strongly has been such an honor for us, to work alongside you. And you're just such an incredible integrity for your data. You're collecting it, you're using it, and making the world a better place, really, one state at a time. And Jersey's so lucky to have you. Talk to me about how people can help you with what you've learned and what students want, because that's what everybody wants to know, for obvious reasons. And then really, there's many people that genuinely want to help you make an impact to truly help the kids. So tell me, what do they want, Chris? What are they asking for?
Yeah, I mean, so it's really interesting and I think this is the perfect place to do it, is on this podcast, is to really kind of get deep, because most of the speaking opportunities that I take are just kind of explaining what is esports and what is Garden State Esports about and stuff like that. But what I rarely ever get to talk about is the business side of running Garden State Esports. And being as big as we are, and in a position that we are, I think that there's a lot that we can share to potentially help bridge that gap between the for-profit world and the education world. And here's why I say that is there are a lot of for-profit entities that are trying to come into esports, and they're trying to run these national scholastic leagues. And you can tell that they don't necessarily understand how the education space works, right? For example, Garden State Esports is the organizing body of scholastic esports for New Jersey, right? So we're basically the same as the State Athletic Association. We make the schedules, we get the schools in, everybody plays everybody, we host the state championship, right? Just like the NJSIAA here in New Jersey. To play with the NJSIAA, a district will pay $2,500. And every kid can play every sport in all the schools that district has for the entire year. When you compare that pricing to what some of the for-profits had charged, and that was actually a big reason why I started Garden State Esports, is I remember I had a call, hey, we're looking for some schools to play, and not only what they were charging, but the way that they talked about kids as being customers, and the way that they talked about kids as being an ends to a means. You know what I mean? It really frustrated me. Especially because most of them were just selling glorified Google spreadsheets, right? We ran our league the same way, just using spreadsheets, just like a lot of this software is. And so all that being said is I don't know if a national model for esports is ever going to work, because you can't have these companies probably scale to a point where they can support all of these states in a way that's meaningful, right? So one
Mhm.
of the biggest things we heard from our kids, when, hey, what did you like about Garden State Esports? Or, almost 25% of the league now had played for some of these for profits, and they all left and now they joined us. And so I survey those, teams as well. And why did you leave, and what was the experience like, and what was different? And really what it came down to is, um, we make esports in New Jersey look like any other after school sport. And that familiarity
Yeah.
is really hard to replicate if you haven't grown up and played in New Jersey, athletics. If you haven't played in the shore conference your entire life, like I did, and coach in the shore conference. And so we take these teams and we put them in their traditional athletic, conferences, and they're playing their high school rival, football on Friday night, and then they're playing, on Monday they're playing esports against each other. And so one of the best ways that we, the for profits, or people who are looking to help, is to support grassroots organizations like Garden State Esports, right? There's a good chance, right? Almost, more than half of the states now have some version of like a Garden State Esports, right? Florida, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Oregon, Washington, California. And a lot of them work with the North American Scholastic Esports Federation, NASIF, which is, just trying to start esports up on a state by state basis the right way. And so supporting those grassroots organizations, I think, are really important, because the barriers to entry, for school districts to start an esports team are more significant, I think, than people think, right? I've started programs with no money. We do something called bring your own device, and the kids or the coaches, they bring in the devices. So that way the school doesn't have to spend anything. Or maybe school gets a couple computers and stuff like that. But to eventually have a real robust esports program that also has a careers program attached to it, you generally have to start to move towards, having a PC lab and stuff like that. And it's really hard to sell schools on the idea of, okay, you have to spend $35,000-$40,000 on this equipment. You can upgrade all of your STEM teachings, coding, you can teach how to make video games, and then magically they transform after school into the esports computers. But then to say, okay, and it's going to be $5,000 a year, for you to play, or for, $64 per kid per season per game. Every little thing you tack on to something new, because not even every board of ed agrees with esports. We don't even know if we want video games in school. We don't know if we want, first person shooters in school and stuff like that. So there's just so many barriers, whether it's socially, whether it's, fiscally. And so one of the best things you can do is support the organizations that are organizing in their state, right? That their bottom line, again, is to students. And to me, that's the best way to grow esports if you really care. And you would have to think that, if you're part of the trade association, or if you're somewhere in the esports ecosystem, it's like anything else. Look, these kids aren't going to go pro, right? They're more likely to play in the NFL than they are to be a pro gamer. However, they are very likely, right, to work in the industry. It was wild. There's something like 86% of our kids want to work in and around the gaming industry. And so the investment that these businesses are making is an investment in their future employees. And again, let's roll it back to that social emotional piece, right? Because we're all teachers, we've even written our own curriculum that helps kids learn about how to handle toxicity. We're doing some really groundbreaking stuff around bystander intervention training, and how if somebody's racist, homophobic, or misogynistic, it's not just enough to, say this is a safe space for everybody to play, but to also stand up when you see something like that. And so, not only are we educating kids around the careers, right? Because a lot of our programs, like I have my own high school team. We have broadcasters, I have a statistician, I have a journalist, I have a webmaster, I have IT kids, right? So what we're even seeing as far as our state league is half the kids on an esports team don't actually want to play. They want to be a part of something. They want to be around something that they love. So, the average team size is like 24, 25 kids, but only 12 of them are kind of like playing. The other 12 are like supporting. And so, that whole piece of it is why I see that industry should be supporting the educators that are in the room with these kids, that they should be, helping those that are doing the work. And, because I hear it so often, we want to do something. We want to make sure, getting rid of the toxicity. We want to make sure that every kid has a safe online gaming experience. But that's, for a lot of these companies, that's not your job. You know what I mean? That's not the purpose of your organization. Whereas I have 270 educators in my league that work with students every single day, that is part of their job. Whether it's I teach a year-long high school esports elective, right? Or they're just meeting with their kids after school as a coach. Like, they're there to shape the kids, instill the values, the work ethic that industry wants to see, that these for-profits and these companies want to see. So to me, the best way to support our organizations and really, I think, even support their own organizations, because these are their future employees, is to invest in the organizations that are doing the work on a daily basis. And I think it's one of those things that it raises all ships. You know what I mean? You're going to get these kids with real hands-on industry experience who know how to act, and they're going to know how to come to work and create an environment and be an employee that anybody would be proud to have.
So tell me about some of the big brands that have made a difference for you, and some examples of how some companies can, work with you at Garden
Mhm.
State Esports and make an impact for these very important, um, components for social, emotional, and academic differences in children.
Yeah. So a lot of the companies that have reached out and help, SHI, if you're familiar with them, they're an education technology reseller. Well, actually, all technology reseller, but in my world, they sell the tech to schools, and they have been our number one supporter from the beginning. They're actually headquartered in New Jersey. So not only do they support us through donating, they even support us with the careers piece. They're always willing to help uh, talk with kids, internships, anything like that, because they truly understand that these kids are going to be their employees, right? SHI is a huge company, and it's headquartered, right in the middle of New Jersey. So there's a good chance that some of these kids are going to end up there, especially when they know, SHI has an esports division and has, been a supporter, you know what I mean? And so financially, they have been fantastic in donating and helping us make sure that Garden State Esports can be free for everybody. So they, pay the league dues of every school in New Jersey for the last 4 years. So I don't have to charge schools.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
I
I
did
don't.
not know that.
Mhm. So yeah, I don't have to charge schools anything because of their generosity. And then on the other hand, too, is they're great in that they're a family-owned business and they live in New Jersey. And what I also love about them is when a school district comes and to Garden State Esports and they need technology, they actually let me sit in on the meetings to advise these schools on the technology that would be the best for their school. Because
That's amazing.
it's not always the most expensive technology that's the best, right? So my understanding of esports and schools and ed tech and stuff like that, I get to jump on these calls, and they've been wonderful. They fully support the mission and what we're doing. So SHI has been wonderful. Um, and it was funny, is even, I guess, we found out through SHI that Garden State Esports is like the number one reseller of like MSI stuff. To the point where, the channel lead at MSI reached out to us and just introduced himself, because he said, hey, through working with SHI, like, you're moving a good amount of, MSI products. And it makes sense, right? My own personal school, all the Garden State Esports equipment, I can think of, probably 40, 50 schools off the top of my head who wound up, investing in some technology for their school. It's all MSI. And so over the last couple months, I've started to build a relationship with MSI. And one thing that they've recently done that was really helpful is they gave us some loaner laptops for the year. And what's great is that's allowed us to expand our face-to-face offerings. So we use these laptops, really, it's pretty neat. So I'll tell you, we use them in a couple different ways. Number one is we will do summer camps. And so we do content creator and esports summer camps. And so we'll have these devices. When we're not doing summer camps or holding our finals, we actually mail these laptops to schools and kids who don't have the technology. And so we started, we're trying to figure out a name for it, but basically, we have started almost like a mailing streaming kit, because MSI also was able to help us with a relationship with Corsair and Elgato. And so Corsair, Elgato, and MSI, basically these kids or schools, they get some key lights, they get a microphone, they get a stream deck, they get a webcam, they get a laptop. And what's cool is so they could start streaming their video games, they could start streaming their matches, which means they have to have a caster, which means they also have to have people managing the back end of Twitch and doing the digital production. And then you also have to have the graphic design to put the stuff on the screen during the stream. And even like a school like mine in Keyport, I actually have 2 Twitch channels. One is totally in Spanish because more than half of my kids speak Spanish. And so a big part of the careers, right, starts with streaming. But again, trying to realize that these schools had a really hard time getting these streaming kits, we basically will either mail them to a school, or we'll actually even mail them to, like, we have individual interns, high school kids who are like, I really want to cast, but my school doesn't have an esports program. So we'll mail them all the stuff. And then when the season's over, we tell them, who the next kid or school to mail their stuff to is. So we have about 12 of these kits kind of just going around the state. And it's actually been unbelievably well received. A lot of these programs are getting to do some cool stuff. So MSI, Corsair, and Elgato kind of came together to do that. And then with the laptops that MSI loaned to us is we were only playing our finals face to face, because I personally own 24 desktops. Basically, my basement's a LAN center. And so we take the desktops and
of course it is.
we rent out of college, and we'll play our finals, because I always want to have a face-to-face aspect, just because I want these kids to know that there's real people behind the computer screens. I want to build a community of caring kids throughout the state. But with the 12 loaner laptops that they were able to give to us, we actually can now play semifinals as well. So you're kind of doubling the amount of kids and schools that we can have come out. And that was a big reason why we would have about 400 or 500 when we were just doing finals. But our last event where we started doing semifinals, thanks to the loaner laptops, we had 1,000 people. So we doubled in size just by, the 12 loaner laptops that they gave us. So we're really excited about that relationship with MSI, Corsair, Elgato. SHI has been wonderful to us. Fit Gamer, if you're familiar with Fit Gamer, they're really in the health and wellness space. They've been really good to us, helping us with our mission of, helping kids make healthy gaming habits, because that's a big reason, parents love us and stuff like that, is we actually talk a lot about when to turn the game off and when to take a break and how not to throw the controller and why you shouldn't be cursing at people. So Fit Gamer's been fantastic. Group, if you're familiar with Group, is an AIM training program, and Gavin, who runs Group, has been a great partner. His wife is a teacher, so he totally understands where we're coming from. So we, do a lot with him, and he makes his program available to the kids in New Jersey, at a great, price. So yeah, I mean, it's nice to have found a lot of caring partners. But the biggest thing that we're working toward is more of that donation piece, because the other side, I think that people don't realize is, everybody on my team is an educator, and I'm always one of the first to bash companies who are making use of free educator labor, right? A lot of times you'll see them on Twitter, and you could become an ex-certified educator by using our products and become a product evangelist. And it frustrates me because teachers are some of the hardest working folks on the planet, and we know we're not going to be paid well. That's not why we got into it. But to see, a lot of that exploitation happening is disappointing. But then I'm also somewhat guilty of it because I can't pay the teachers on my team really much of anything. Some of them are working, 20, 30 hours a week on different projects for Garden State Esports. And, I could throw them a couple $1,000 stipend. And the other thing where industry can help by making donations or support beyond stuff is the teacher burnout is going to be real. My team isn't going to work for years for free, and they shouldn't have to. So being able to just give the people who help run Garden State Esports, so they don't have to also be a waitress or wait tables, or they also don't have to have, a second or a third job, because, that's what it is to be a teacher, have second, 2 and 3 jobs. So if I can, somehow pay them so they don't have to, work at Best Buy or, whatever side hustle that they have, would be amazing. Because that's my other biggest fear is, hey, Chris, I love working for Garden State Esports, but I kind of can't do it because everything keeps getting more expensive and nobody's getting paid anything, extra anymore. Well, I can't run this totally by myself anymore. It's too big. And so that's why, beyond supporting organizations like ours, those grassroots, teacher organizations, being willing to financially support us, so we don't have to charge schools, so we don't have to, pass the cost on to students and stuff like that, because that doesn't happen in most other sports, in most other states. You don't charge the kids to play football. It's covered by the schools, or it's covered by, other means. But, so that's kind of the area I'm working through now. Is we're so big that, this is going to be a full-time job in the next couple of years, but we got to find that money. So that's part of what we're trying to figure out.
And we're trying to help you do that.
Absolutely.
So obviously, yeah, I'm hearing, Chris, that, just managing your growth and managing the quality of your program. When I was listening about your streaming kits, I think that might be the name, by the way, but yeah, I was just thinking, how do you even manage them? But I was thinking you had hundreds, not 12.
Yeah.
I was thinking, gosh, how do they administratively manage the streaming kits? Because it's going to be that our kids need the equipment that they need.
Right.
Period. Every child in school or not should have technology equipment at their, at access to that in their home. I mean, that's just a no-brainer. Of all the things you do, where do you find yourself really getting lit up, where you say to yourself, I could do this part of the job all day?
Oh, easily the competitive side of it. I really just enjoy making the matches. We Mike Johnson and I, he's on my team. He's the head of competition. We did like an esports style ESPN pregame show for the finals, where we revealed the seeds live on air. We picked our dark horses. We analyzed the matches. So I really enjoy the competitive side of it. Going back to why I always got involved. So I really like, like I'm making the schedule, today before we were speaking, for 200 something teams. And I just get really excited about like putting everybody in their conference, and Union and Union City are going to play against each other, and Elizabeth and Trenton are in the league now, so they're going to play against each other. So that piece is really exciting to me. And so I could definitely do the competition piece. I love even like casting matches, and kind of like I want to do like a Friday ESPN like Sports Center wrap up kind of show where we talk about what happened this week and predict what's going to happen next week. And what's really cool is that the kids love that stuff.
Yes.
Because a lot of these kids for the first time have the spotlight on them. And to be able to, we did our very first All-Stars. We did our first All-Star teams this season. And so we figured out how we could do first and second team all-stars. And these kids, when they came, to be recognized at our finals, were just thrilled. And then their parents were there. And it always amazes me when these parents, and it always makes me so happy when these parents are like, I didn't know this was a thing. I didn't know, it was like this. And whether they're playing in the playoffs or they're being recognized, to have their parents look at them in a different way. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
We just did an interview where one of the best Smash players in the country, Super Smash players in the country, he's from New Jersey, and his parents kind of didn't think it was important or something that mattered until he joined Garden State Esports as a freshman, and he's won 2 state titles so far. And now all of a sudden we're like, his biggest cheerleaders, his supporters. And, when he practices or he wants to go to, other Smash tournaments around the state, his parents are like, yeah, let's go. So just to have them see their parents in a new way, to celebrate them, to put the spotlight on them, to make them matter, you know what I mean, is the best part, So even like the finals events, they all come out to pro wrestling style entrances with music and lights and stuff like that. And, that's the other piece I really love is finding ways to celebrate kids and put them in the spotlight, especially if they've never been there before. So I always try to find, my team makes fun of me because I'm a little bit extra, but I always try to find ways to showcase kids, and the crazier and the more fun, the better, So we even had contests where during their walkout, who was going to have the craziest walkout and stuff like that. So we had a whole school dress up barbarians, because they were the barbarians. And now that moms and dads are coming with signs, and they have flags, and they're wearing the jerseys of the school. And so just to see all that extra, hit them with that razzle dazzle stuff, I really like that piece too. So anything to do with competition and celebrating kids really gets me excited.
Wow. I kind of thought that I'm really looking forward to when the post shows. I mean, I remember the evolution of fantasy sports when Matt Berry brought the pre and the post show.
Exactly.
So it's so fun to see. Because really 15 years ago, people didn't even know what fantasy sports was.
Right.
So I was part of that, which is why people thought I would be a good fit to help with, the education of what esports really is. And I'll tell you, my godchild, I used to see on Saturdays, as many Saturdays as I could growing up, to make an impact. And my godchild's 2 favorite places, funny you should mention, was Radio Shack and GameStop. And you know what he said when he graduated IIT as an engineer for gamification was, thank you for watching me play video games.
Yeah.
That was that. And I was like, I didn't even know that he remembered.
Yeah.
But that's what he wanted. So if I could I had no children of my own. So this was the only child I could make an impact with in my little life.
Right.
So if I could do one thing, I just wanted to do what he would want. And it wasn't that long, but I would just sit there for a few minutes and have him walk me through what he was doing, or quietly watch. I mean, just depending on, kind of mood. And that's what he thanked me for. It was just last year, he got his college degree. I was blown away.
Well, and it's so funny you say that, because that's the exact advice I give to parents, whether it's parents who come see me when I'm teaching, or it's parents from around the league who email me. And a lot of times it's like, how can I support the better emails are, how can I support my kid? But sometimes I even get emails or parents coming up to me, all they do is play video games. I don't understand, especially the younger kids, some of these Minecraft kids who just play and make stuff in Minecraft, and watch YouTube videos about making things in Minecraft. And how do I get them off, or how do I make them do other things? That is always the biggest piece of advice I give. I said, do me a favor. I said, before you do or say anything, or if you really want to understand it, just sit and watch them, have them explain what they're doing and why they love what they're doing. And even if you can, pick up a controller and play with them. And I can't tell you how many parents will come back and say, I couldn't believe all the stuff my kid was doing, all the behind the
Yeah.
scenes things.
Yeah.
And then I'll even, I'm lucky I get to hear it from the other side too, is I'll have kids who tell me, in their own teenage way, it was really cool that my parents cared about what I cared about. But when you think about it, it's so simple and it's
It
done
is.
almost everywhere else. If he
Yep.
was a football player, if he was
Yep.
a chess team, if he was in the theater,
Yep.
you would go see the play, you would go watch the matches. But if it's a kid playing video games, it just isn't, it's getting there, but it's not there yet. So I mean, I think that's fantastic that you did that. And you could see even as a college graduate what it meant to them. And similarly, engineer and gamification, kids who love video games tend to work in STEM fields and
Right.
go off into that industry and stuff like that. So, that's the other side that parents are actually supporting here too, is even in New Jersey, we have 42 universities and colleges, 36 of them have esports programs. We got about a dozen kids college scholarships through Garden State Esports last year without even trying. And now we're actively, we have a recruitment portal where kids can enter their information, and then the college programs that we vet can also connect with the kids. And we hope to, in the next 2 or 3 years, we want 10% of our league to earn a scholarship, 500 kids to get a scholarship for esports or academic excellence. And like same thing, we surveyed all these kids, and I think a little over half, maybe almost 60%, want to go and major somewhere in STEM. Whether it's cybersecurity was a big one. It's just it's fascinating, right? If kids like games, it permeates into all aspects of their life. We actually had
Wait,
72.
you just said if kids like games. They're kids, even adults. I mean, we have to play more. It's
Right.
proven that my brain,
Mhm.
is developed from growing up playing chess. I don't remember
Definitely.
learning chess, but
Right.
I have a great brain. It could see many things ahead.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like what you're dealing with right now is like, what am I going to do in 1 to 3 years with this? It's a beast. It's coming. It's a tad overwhelming. It's so successful, Chris. And
Absolutely. Oh,
I tip
definitely.
my hat to you. But it's genuinely overwhelming when you see what's coming.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't necessarily say you can't scale the nation. Um, I mean, because I don't know what I don't know,
Mhm.
but I do know never say never. That I know because I get in these industries, in these associations, and look at things that just blow your mind.
Yeah.
But I would have no opinion on it. I just think what you're doing is amazing, and you're a pioneer, and you're the biggest and the best, and an example for all of us. And it's such an honor to have you. We have just a couple more minutes. I have
Sure.
one question for you, which I just have to ask. What would be your dream brand to sponsor you? Everybody has one dream brand. Just and you can name more than one if you want.
Yeah.
But
I think the easy answer are the MSIs and the SHIs of the world, right? Those that are in the space and by supporting us also support their business. I'll be honest, the dream brands that I want are the video game publishers, Riot, Blizzard, because for them to come out in full support, everybody will follow them. And being on the
that's true.
Riot Scholastic board, I'm proud of the work that we've been doing. I'm proud that League of Legends was given back to the people.
Yes.
I'm proud that Valorant is going to stay, with the people. But to have the support of these publishers, because even we have to be careful. Like, we choose our words carefully when we say organizing body of New Jersey. We can't say governing body because the governing body are the actual video game publishers. And they can, like you have seen, they can go exclusive with a company and nobody else
Right.
is allowed to play it in a scholastic space. They can make their game free and available, or they can even be like a Velen Studios and Knockout City. or a great game that just came out, Omega Strikers, where they're actively working with schools. Like Garden State Esports has emotes in Omega Strikers. You could throw a Garden State Esports flag up in the actual game. So you have the full gamut of publishers who are like, hey, Garden State Esports, let's work together to make this game and get some customization so that when your kids play, they can celebrate being in your league. And then on the other side, you have companies that are like, no, you're not allowed. My favorite, you can play the game however you want, except you can't play it in a school. You know what I mean? So you have this whole gamut. So for these publishers to come out and just say that Scholastic Esports and a lot of these organizations that are supporting students, and that could be the for-profit companies. I think that they all have a place at the table. That's my big thing, is everybody has a seat. So whether you're Play Versus or HSEL or EGF or your Play Fly, like everybody has a purpose. Everybody has a niche to fill. But for them to come out and say specifically, oh, hey, that teacher run league in New Jersey or that teacher run league in Pennsylvania, like they're legitimate just as much as a Playfly is, would mean the world to us. And so I hope that's on the horizon at some point. But yeah, that would be the dream brand, or I would want the support of the actual publishers of the game.
And I hope that that's coming. It looks like it is. And Riot has been so good. When they were here in the summer, it was just amazing what they did for Chicago Public Schools. And I was part of all of that. JT coordinated, so much generosity. I sat with the teachers. I always joke. So United Center, like, is full of suites. I'm not sure if you've ever been to our United Center. It's just a center of suites.
Right.
Well, I sat with the teachers and I didn't even know you could have a seat so high. In the regular, I think I was in the last seat.
Nosebleeds.
But it was still amazing and so generous. Riot, I believe they offered every teacher a seat in that stadium that was middle school or high school. And I wanted to experience it from the teacher's filter the whole day.
Right.
And I did. And we were part of a great program that educated the teachers on what is esports, and how it can help, in their classroom. So It was amazing. Brought to you by Riot. So parting advice before we go, and any parting advice?
I think the parting advice I would give is what I talked about when you guys honored me with that very cool and unexpected reward, and I got to, come and see how the other half live in that world. But the biggest thing, I think, the parting advice would be the same, is that we, and when I say we, educators who are doing this with kids, whether it's on a state level or just in their own classroom, we're not looking for people to do stuff for us. We're looking for people to do stuff with us, right? We are more than capable of, running meaningful programs, running meaningful events, running meaningful teams, and having meaningful competitions. But they will only be made more impactful when a company chooses to support us by working with us instead of, trying to do things for us. Oh, let us do this for you. Let us do. Right. So that's the big thing for me is the way that I look at relationships now as we continue to get bigger, is who wants to take what we're already doing and who wants to amplify it, who wants to make it bigger, who wants to make it cooler. And I think that's the biggest thing, is there's a lot of us, like you just mentioned, Illinois, Andy Mendez over in Illinois runs the Garden State Esports version, for that state. And he's fantastic. And, he was there and part of the whole scene, and he brought the whole league, to see, what Riot was putting on. And it was it was unbelievable, talking to him and how great his experience was. That's a perfect example of, hey, let's do this with you. Let's bring your whole league and, kind of show them, they got tours behind the scenes, and they got to see production, and they got to see how everything worked. And now you've inspired all these kids who, they love League of Legends, and they're probably not going to go pro, but maybe they can work at Riot, or they can work in a similar field. So I think that's the biggest thing. I hope that folks take away is we would love to do stuff with you, and you will make us better, when we work together.
And there you have it. Garden State Esports. How can people get a hold of you to make their donation, partner with you, or work with you?
Yeah, website is gsesports.org. I am Teched Up Teacher, TECHED Up Teacher on all social media. Chris at gsesports.org is the email. I'm pretty easy to find, so I'm always excited to build a new partnership with somebody who shares the vision. So I look forward to it, and thank you for having me, and thank you for running the Esports Trade Association. It's been fantastic to be a part of it. And it's really cool.
It's an honor to serve, and that's another episode of Esports Connected. Thank you, Chris, for being on the show. Till next time.